I grew up fairly athletic family. My dad, very athletic. We did a lot of athletic stuff. And so about 8th, 9th grade, decided we're all going to learn to ski. All right, so he started going up to what's a place called Snow Summit, which is where all of Southern California, like 84 million people, all go skiing every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It is the craziest snow resort you've ever seen in your life. But that's where we learned to ski, and so we all learned to snow plow. You all know, raise your hand if you know what snow plowing is. So some of you have been skiing. And so there's usually a line there, and at the bunny slope, the line's a dangerous place to stay. Right? You all know if you're learning the line, you don't really want to stand in line, but you do, because that's where all the beginners want to stop, but beginners can't stop, so they plow into the line. You watch the bunny slope line, and it's just comedy 24/7. It's just poor beginners just plowing in. So we were doing that. I plowed into the line. I'm sitting on the ground. I'm feeling very embarrassed. And then my little brother plows into the line, and we're kind of looking at each other. Everyone's looking at us. We're feeling kind of stupid. And then my dad plows into the line, and my little brother says, "That's my dad." Like, okay, that explains everything. This isn't on Robbie and I. This is all on this man right over here. That's my dad. I did my dad's memorial service. He passed about 5 years ago. And I'd always had the name Little Jerry. Yeah, I wasn't that thrilled with it. I was okay. I didn't get Junior or I didn't like any of those either. Little Jerry. It wasn't until I did my dad's service that I really, really looked at his life, spent some time, and then presented his life. And at that moment, I became very, very proud, and I loved the name Little Jerry. And I'm Little Jerry here. Big Jerry Huntercheck, say wave hi. There's Big Jerry right back over there, just like my dad. An amazing guy, just an amazing guy. And I'm happy being Little Jerry, I'll tell you what. So, in that single statement, though, that's my dad. In that single statement, every dad is going to be filled with either pride and accomplishment, or in the way it's said, that's my dad. I remember I went to the beach when we were little, and Bill Pruitt, I shouldn't say people's names. My buddy's dad was there, and he didn't look great in a swimsuit. Me and Bill were just kind of poking fun. And I know it was in Bill's voice when he said, "That's my dad." And I know he was embarrassed and he was a little bit ashamed. And I thought, man, your dad's pretty cool. He looks funky in a bathing suit, but that's all good. That's, we're at the beach. That's all fine. But really, every one of you dads, you're going to hear your kids say, "That's my dad." And it's going to be filled with joy, or it's going to be filled with embarrassment and shame, depending on how you have lived your life. And I know every dream of every dad, I already know what it is. You don't even need to tell me. Dream of every dad is one day having a really, really good adult relationship with your adult children. And everything you're doing right now is building or detracting from that one day that they're going to become your adult friend. And they're going to walk through life with you. But a lot depends. And again, we have a lot of dads here who have already been down that road. So I want to encourage you, if you've been down that road, if you've been to that rodeo, I encourage you to find young men and start sharing this stuff with them. Pass it on, right? Pass it on. That's huge, huge. I remember, again, sitting at home, and my dad has a huge black beard. He had long hair. And I remember we stopped at somebody's house one time. I was about 4th or 5th grade, and the little girl scared to death, and the dad made the comment that my dad looked like a cross between John the Baptist and Charles Manson. Okay, so can you picture my dad, and he's on the back of the motorhome, and a buddy of mine dropped me off from track practice one afternoon, and the look on his face, and it jarred me, because I know my dad. He would not hurt a fly. He's just the most tender, but when you look at him, you go, oh, he was in the Navy, he broke his nose like 5 times. The guy's just a physical wreck, and he's got his beard, black beard, and his long hair, and David Moore goes, "Who is that?" I'm like, "That's my dad." And I tell you what, I said it with pride, and David Moore recognized that, and it really threw him too. Like that guy is, you're proud of? It's like, yeah, man, that's my dad. So again, we're all going to face that statement from our kids, and will it be with pride, or will it be with embarrassment? And again, within that phrase and how it's said, is it said with pride or joy, there lies a really big dad truth. I kind of want to lay on you guys this morning. And that is that our culture and your experiences might seem to contradict this dad truth, but the dad truth is, dads, you do matter. Dads, look at me. You do matter. Right up says it, despite what our culture says, right? Until recently, you know this. In the court system, push comes to shove, who gets the kids? Mom, because dad's usually a basket case. I don't know what the reason is, but moms up until now, and now it's kind of going, it's changing just a little bit. But our culture has said moms are the go-to. Moms are the go-to. Dad's disposable. And our culture has begun to look like that. We've made dads somewhat disposable, haven't we? Right? They can have babies and they can not be around to take care of them. And I'm just not going to go into all that, but that's a huge thing. And again, I'm not looking at devaluing moms this morning. I just want to reevaluate dads, all right? I mean, consider this. Dads, you're your first son's hero. Even if you were a horrible dad, isn't that weird? Psychologists tell us, even if you're horrible, you will probably be your son's first hero. And I've seen it. I was a school teacher for a long time, and I would see horrible dads, and I would see these sons that, don't you talk about my dad that way. And it's not that I was, but I could hear other kids, and boy, they would defend dad. And I knew dad was just a horrible, but boy, those little boys, little girls, man, no, man, don't talk about my dad. That's my dad. That's my dad. Daughters, dads are probably going to be, and this goes a little weird, your daughter's first boyfriend, right? The way you treat your daughter is going to teach her her value and how she should be valued by her future husband and boyfriends. Dads, how you treat your daughter, huge, huge, huge. And if your experience is anything like mine, dads, what you do matters despite what your experience tells us. So culture tells us, dads, you don't matter, and I'm here to tell you that culture is wrong. And despite what your experience has told you, your experience is probably wrong. You've all heard, it's probably gone around, go ask mom, right? Okay, dads, that's my go-to. I'm taking a nap, go ask your mom. And really, dads usually don't have the answer, right? So they say, go ask mom. There's a story of a mom that had been apparently teaching the little girl childbirth, and maybe she heard about how painful it was. And well, Grandpa's having a conversation with little Abby. And he tells Abby, well, sure, there's a lot of pain in childbirth, but your mom soon forgets. Women forget all about it, and they love you. And if you had stopped because of childbirth, we would never have you and your little sister, and blah blah blah. And Abby looks at the grandfather and just pauses for a minute and says, well, what do you know? You're just a man. Right? And the little girl's already picked up on something, right? Go ask mom, because dad doesn't have the answers. Dad doesn't ever know what's going on. Where are the kids? I don't know. I don't even know we had kids. They're around the neighborhood somewhere. My daughter said, and she made this comment, asking dad is a waste of time. Because mom would say, go ask dad, and Amanda would say, no, that's a waste of time. Because I know what dad's going to say. Go ask your mom. That's the way it works. Luckily, turns out, dads, listen carefully now. This is huge. It's not what you know, it's what you do. It's not what you do. It's what you do that's important. It's not what you know. Again, this is good because don't think. That's our go-to, right? That's why America's Funniest Home Videos has been in business so long, right? Dudes and dads. You can watch American Funniest Home Videos, and there's no women doing anything stupid. It's all dads. Watch this, son. Go get your mom now. Get the keys. We're going to the hospital. Again, no surprise, we gain insights from mom by discussion, and we gain insights from dad by watching. So psychologists tell us this. And this is particularly true when it comes to passing on our faith. And this is going to be jarring to some of you. I'm going to show you some statistics. Just hold on. Researchers in Switzerland, they examined parents' religious habits, how they were transmitted to their offspring. And they studied all these different variables, but one critical factor stood out amongst everything else. It's the practice of the dads determine whether children will acquire their own faith. Practice of the dads. Here's the shocker. And again, I'm not banging on moms here. I just want to reevaluate dads. Women, you hold on to your seat. I'm going to get some emails tomorrow morning. I just know it. Habits of the mom have almost no influence over their kids' future faith. I'm telling you this is. I'm going to add a little bit to this. You're not nothing. I don't want to say that, but moms, dads, you are huge in this. Consider these findings. Again, when mom attends regularly and dad attends occasionally, about 3% of the kids have a faith, their own faith. This is in Switzerland, which is some pretty abysmal numbers anyway. And if mom attends regularly but dad never attends, it only drops 1%. But when dad is faithful, hit that next slide. When both attend, both mom and dad, 33% of the kids develop their own faith. When dads attend regularly, but mom only occasionally, 38%. And when mom never attends, do you see what's going on? The numbers are going up. So there's idea in psychology, and this is something I picked up quite a long time ago, totally different situation, but in life, to a child, mom always represents childhood and dad always represents adulthood. And the job really of a dad is to walk a child, and this is kind of the visual, it's like two posts, and a childhood to adulthood is like a child walking a tightrope between mom and dad, and they got to make it across. And dad's job is to grab the hold of child at mom's post and walk them across until they're adults. Mom stays at the post. It's like, and I just psychology, it's the wiring. Mom will always represent childhood. Anything that mom does, it just childish, childhood-like. They connect with that. But dads, listen to me, dads, you represent adulthood. Everything that you do, they think that's what I will be doing and that's what I'll look like as an adult. What you do matters so much. In fact, if dad leads by example, children are 22 times more likely to become lifelong worshipers. Dads, just a huge thing. Again, if the kids see religion as mom thing, they get disenfranchised. They just get disenchanted. They're not that enthralled with it because that's a childish thing. I'm just telling you, this is just kind of what goes psychology. Bottom line, in spiritual matters, kids take their cues from dad. Dads were wired for achievement. Generally speaking, guys, we're achievers. Generally speaking, ladies are better communicators. We don't communicate as we achieve, and we just roll over people. That's what guys do, just generally speaking. Oh, by the way, I want to introduce our winner of our drawing at our Sunday school hour, that easy chair back there. Congratulations on our drawing winner. Enjoy back there. Yeah. This is not going to become a regular thing. Don't expect to have a chaise lounge for you in the back. Guys, we are wired for achievement. Ultimately, God made us that way so that we could pursue and achieve his purposes for our lives. And this is just the way it's all set up. And listen, God's word never tells us it'll be easy. That's the beauty of Jesus. He's just brutally honest with us. And he's basically saying, look, I didn't come to make your life easy. I came to make you amazing. Right? We all think, oh, well, I'll become a Christian, I'll become a follower, and everything will be good. And that's not what I'm saying right here. Dads, if you start going to church, there's no guarantee that everything is going to turn out beautiful. But your odds greatly increase because your kids will be doing what you do. I want to listen to these words from Jesus, and then we're going to move into a time of prayer. Words of Jesus himself in Matthew Gospel chapter 5, verses 11 and 12. And I just kind of want to sit on this one and stop. And again, we're going to enter now a time of prayer, and then I'm going to bring you some more scripture after we come back. But I just want to listen to this. This is in Matthew chapter 5. It says, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me." This is to dads. This is to anybody who calls himself a follower of Jesus Christ, who might be thinking, well, if I do this, my life will be easy. It says, "Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they were persecuted. They persecuted the prophets who were here before you." See, Jesus is only stating the truth here. There's no advice, there's no instruction given at this point. We're going to arrive at that point in just a little bit. We're going to turn to a letter of Paul. And Paul's writing to a little guy named Timothy. He's a very young man. And Paul's kind of in the position of dads. right? We dads, we sometimes wonder what our kids are going to say about us. You know, is that my dad? And are they proud? Well, Paul, in the letter we're going to look at when we come back from a time of prayer, he's sitting in a jail cell. And he's kind of writing like a dad to Timothy. And I guess he's on his mind. He's like, what are my churches saying about me? Are they proud? Like, that's my spiritual dad, Paul. Right? Are they embarrassed that I'm now sitting in prison? And what Paul says to us this morning, if you're a dad and you're wondering, wow, am I doing a good job? Am I doing a bad job? What does God think about the job I'm doing? The words of Paul are going to just fill you this morning. They're going to lift you up. They're going to be wind underneath your wings. If you're a dad or if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, Paul is just going to bring us all home this morning and give us that incredible peace. That dads, because of their role in our culture, that they feel a lot of this weight. And your Heavenly Father wants to relieve you of that weight this morning. So what I want to do right now, I want to pray for fatherhood. In our culture, fatherhood has taken a huge, huge beating, and you're all aware of this. And dads are under attack from all angles. Dadhood is under attack. Christian dadhood is under attack. Almost like a Christian dad is now the enemy because you're teaching your children values that maybe the rest of the world doesn't hold, and they're starting to call us names. And dads, stay the course. What you do is going to matter hugely. Not what you teach, it's what you do. Your kids are going to watch you. They're going to kind of listen to you. You know that. But they're going to watch you, and they're going to watch you closely. Dads, you matter. Dads matter. I know the world. And again, as I'm showing you those statistics, I don't want you to think that moms don't matter. I mean, Susanna Wesley, you all know the whole story. All this is a study in Switzerland that everything else remaining the same, dads, what you do matters. All right? So just don't leave thinking that Pastor Jerry said moms don't matter. That's not actually what I said. All right? Dads, you really matter, though. On being a dad. So before I look at the letter to Paul, I think we need to read his letter in context. On Mother's Day, I showed you the stories of some moms, and I told you all that if you're a mom, this is nothing new. You all know this, but for the dads and the rest of the people in the audience, this was new stuff, and you all need to pay attention and listen. I'm going to kind of do the same thing here with dads. Dads, I'm going to describe you. Right? What's it like being a dad? And you're all going to go, you know, preach it, brother, whatever, preaching to the choir. But the rest of y'all need to pay attention, right? Because this is what dads go through. And maybe you've heard rumors, but we're just kind of put some flesh on these ideas of what it's like to be a dad. So we're going to step into dad's shoes for just a little bit this morning. What's it like being a dad? First thing. Dads, squirrel, right? Dads are easily distracted by both opportunities and threats. It's a dad thing. Opportunities, positive distractions, right? Opportunities to do more and more things. Dad, who's always the one that's telling dad, slow down? No, you don't need to go out and earn that extra dollar. You don't need to, right? Mom's saying, Dad, what about family? And I know I went through that stage. It was like, no, I want to go get a third job, and then we can make this payment, and then we can do this, and pretty soon, I barely know my daughters. So we're dads, very, very easily distracted. And a lot of times these opportunities that we're distracted by, they're really, really good, but they detract from great. And more often than not, something we got to pay attention to is it's a good opportunity. It might be even a great opportunity, but it's not the opportunity that God's calling you to. You already had these other three, remember? And they're taking up like 70 hours a week. And you think, oh, God's giving me another opportunity. No, he's not. That's Satan saying, you can be better by working more. And God's saying, stop it. I already love you. You need to spend some time with your family. Opportunities are not always good, even though they appear good. They can get in the way of what God's calling you to do. And we just get busy. We get overwhelmed, and we just start finding our identity. This is a guy's issue. We find our identity in our work, what we do, right? This is how we feel manly when we do stuff. I see this again in our culture, when men retire. They face a very big risk of kind of losing their personhood almost because they're no longer at the office where everyone calls them sir and mister, and you get to wear a tie and the suit and the whole bit. And now you're just like, take the dog out. right? Has the trash been taken out, honey? Right? Your value feels like it went like way, way down. But the fact of the matter is, if your value was in your work, yeah, you're going to take a hit. But if your value was in being a follower of Jesus Christ, you still have kids, you have grandkids. I was just talking back there. What, we got about 14, 16 great-grandkids back there in the sound booth? Crazy number back there. I don't know what it was. Crazy. So we just get busy. Now, here's a good leadership law. This is for everybody. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Because there will be a lot of things coming down the pike, and you're going to want to do all those things, but keep the main thing the main thing. Again, it's helpful when facing good rather than great, but it's also helpful when we face threats, right? Negative distractions, enticements to sin. Because, Dad, you're usually the one out the job. There are so many opportunities for you to cheat a little bit. And you might be thinking, no, not me. I would never sin. I would never steal supplies. I would never do anything like that. But dads, we have this nasty habit of just kind of beginning to slack off just a little bit when nobody's working, nobody's looking, and we're called to do everything we do as if for the Lord, as if He were our boss watching us. In our jobs, maybe we need to watch distractions that are negative distractions. And again, dads, if you keep the main thing, your kids will keep the main thing too. And above everything else, more important than the main thing being the main thing, they will know who the main thing is by watching you. And that'll be even more important than the main thing, is who is the main thing. A second barrier for dads in general. Dads are criticized when they choose to follow God's plan at any cost. Dads get criticized for that. You set big goals, you're going to get criticized. That's our world. The secret to deflecting criticism ultimately is to make sure you're building God's kingdom and not your own kingdom. And again, guys, that is one of our battles. We want to build our kingdoms, right? That's my name on that building. That's my name on this. My name, kids, everything about carrying on. And will we be remembered? If you're building your own kingdom, you're always going to feel threatened. You're always going to feel defensive. And people who are defensive can't lead. If you're always defending your kingdom, you're going to have a hard time leading your family, your business, whatever you're trying to lead, if you're always on the defensive. So the question, again, for all of us, are you going to build your kingdom, or are you going to build God's kingdom? Because if you're going to build God's kingdom, you know that it's ultimately God's responsibility. So when it all goes to garbage, it all goes down the drain, you don't have to worry, because it wasn't about you, right? It was 100% about God, and God must not have wanted it to work. That's the way I always feel about it. When one of my plans doesn't work, I just figure God wasn't in on it. I have no skin off my nose. I have no fear, right? I risked. I stepped out on faith. It bombed. Well, God, that's on you, because this was your deal. And I sleep well at night. I really do, because this is God's kingdom that we're building here, right? So when when people criticize your choices that reflect a holy God, you're able to handle it because you know your God can handle it. Not a problem. Tithing, I get this a lot. How are you going to build your kingdom if you're constantly giving 10% of your income to that kingdom? Exactly. I won't. When I give to God's kingdom first, I don't worry about building my kingdom, because my first and best goes to His kingdom. Exactly. Let me see here. Finally, men, particularly dads, they get overwhelmed with the responsibility of being a dad, right? So Satan can't sidetrack us with opportunities. If Satan can't slander us, by following God's precepts and doing the things we know that God wants us to do, even though our culture looks at us and go, what are you, panty waist? They kind of, you're a girly man. What are you, going to church every Sunday? We need to be going to the football game. And no, we who are followers of Jesus Christ, we stand and we do certain things, and we don't do other things. Again, there's real dangers that we face. And we do need to have a sense of caution, guys. We have a hard time with that. But we can't avoid risk and live to avoid pain. That's not your call. If we're going to become the men that God has called us to be, we're going to have to face risk, loss, because that's what God is calling us to do, is to put everything on the line. And here's the truth, guys, and again, this is the rest of us. Many of your greatest achievements lie just past the object of your fear. We all have just that one fear, and if you really look at your lives, you will recognize that it is stopping you in a dozen different ways. One little fear stops you in all spheres of life, but particularly your spiritual life, because you feel like, well, God must not love me. I've been doing all this stuff, and I end up in a hospital. I do all this stuff for God, and this is what happens to my kids. I do all this stuff for God, and my house forecloses. Maybe you've all been in that place. I do all this for God, and this is really the way God pays me back. And then you stop trying. You just stop moving forward. Your greatest achievements lie just past the object of your fear. So live by faith, live in Him, discover His purposes. But again, what does that look like? What are we saying? What is it to live by faith? Does it mean that all your goals and all your ambitions are going to be met? Absolutely not. Not at all. Again, I'm going to jump to Paul here. Paul has found tremendous contentment. He's found joy. And you would think, oh, well, Paul, he did exactly what God told him to do, so God blessed him. Right? He's probably living in some mansion, right? And he's enjoying. He's got a big church that runs over 1,000 people, and all the other churches are jealous of him and in town. I want you to read the context of what he's writing. He is filled with joy. He has lived a life well. And he's totally, watch this. This is in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 11 and 12. Now remember, he's writing from jail. And just like dads are asking themselves, what will my children say about me? Will they be proud of me? He's sitting there in jail thinking, what about my followers? Are they embarrassed of me? Are they ashamed of me? I'm sitting here in prison. What are my churches thinking about me? And again, I see that parallel with dads. What are my kids thinking about me? And I'm about to get fired because I took a stand for something right, and the kids around the block are already talking, right? But dad's going to stand up and do the right thing. Listen, 2 Timothy, first chapter, 11 and 12 verses. And again, this is Paul writing to a Timothy. This is like a spiritual dad writing to his spiritual son. Listen to this. And of this gospel I was appointed a herald and an apostle and a teacher. And that's why I'm suffering as I am. Yet this is no cause for shame. I'm not regretting anything. I'm not embarrassed that I made a decision for Jesus, right? That's what he's saying right there. That is why I'm suffering as I am. Yet this is no cause for shame, because I know whom I have believed. No regrets. Not what I know about. It's about who I know, right? And then Paul takes it one step further, right? From hope to absolute certainty. Watch this. And convinced that he is able to guard what I have entrusted him today to him until that day. Right? He has thought about Jesus. He has lived in a relationship with God. And Paul cannot conceive, even though he's sitting in jail, Paul cannot conceive of a future that wouldn't include joy and happiness and everything that he worked for coming to full fruition. He just couldn't conceive of it, because the God that he had knew, the God that he had had a relationship, not just a fact that he had known about, but the God that he had been in relationship all these years as he's been preaching and been a witness. And he's sitting in jail, and people would say to him, "Where's your God?" I'm not worried. I'm not worried in the least, because I didn't build my kingdom. I built God's kingdom. I'm not worried in the least, because God is guarding what I've entrusted to him. Can't be taken from the evil one. He's made his deposit with God. So men, keep on keeping on. Dads, you matter. What you do, your kids are watching you. And if you have a strong faith, your kids are going to have a strong faith. Despite distractions, criticisms, and fears, work honestly and entrust everything you do to God. Let it be his battle. You fight for your family, and then let him fight those spiritual battles. I want to read very quickly. This is a list I have on my wall. And I'm going to close with this. These are paradoxical commands of leadership. And I can't help but thinking every dad ought to have these right on his desk, because this is what dads do. So number one, people are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. Dads, that's what you teach your kids. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Dads, in front of your kids, do good anyway. Even when they hear people ridiculing you, do good anyway. If you're successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. The biggest people with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest people with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People favor underdogs but follow only top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway. Dad? What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help but may attack you if you do help them. Help them anyway. Give the world the best you have and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. And Dad, when you continue to follow these paradoxical laws of leadership, your kids will be watching, not only your biological kids, but the rest of this spiritual family, this body, kids in the neighborhood. They're all watching you. You don't recognize it. You hope they're not, but they are. And I know you secretly pray that they didn't see or they didn't hear, but they did. I can almost guarantee you they did. Again, I know your prayer. When you're an adult, you want to have a really great relationship with your adult children. It starts with your character. Is it a character that they'll stand up at the very end and say, that's my dad. That's my dad. Would you bow your heads? Father, thank you for being such an incredible father that we can see and we can begin to emulate. And then you sent your son, Jesus, flesh and blood, and we found out so much more about you, about how much you really do love us. And Father, you call us to love each other. As dads, moms, grandparents, the whole family. Lord, help us to love anyway. Thank you, Father. In your son's name I pray. Amen.